Hello and welcome to the public affairs program here at Catamount Radio, which we call Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, the host of the 1 hour show, and we call it Catamount Community Connection because we like to speak with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. And the goal of the show is to inform and make our listeners aware of things that are going on, not just in Rutland County, but also throughout the state, things that will affect everyone listening. In some cases, maybe a new law or regulation that will be going into effect. Our show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. And we're already looking forward to the 178th Fair, August 13th through 17th, 2024. And our guest today, Bill Lucci, the program director of the Hub Co-works, and Cooper Babbitt, who is the operations director of CEDRR. And for those of you that are not aware of what the acronym stands for, obviously you haven't been listening to the show because we've had both Lyle Jepson and Crispin White on a number of times. And this is what turned into sort of an amalgamation of the Chamber and Economic Development. So that's what it is. It's the Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region, better known as CEDRR. It's a lot easier to say that than to say all those words again. So there are distinctions here between the Hub Co-works and CEDRR itself. And I don't know what I've done in the past with Bill and Cooper in mind is just sort of to allow you with a 1 or 2 minute bio of who you are, how you wound up doing what you're doing, and that kind of thing so that people get a little sense of who you are and get to know you a little better. I don't know who wants to kick things off. Okay. How about Cooper Babbitt?
My name is Cooper Babbitt. As Brian said, I'm the operations director at CEDRR.
I am a born and bred Rutland native. I grew up in Rutland City, went through the Rutland schools, left for a few years for college and my early professional career. Did some work in politics as well as in finance and in the legal field. Made my way back to Rutland in the last year, and I'm excited to take on this role here at CEDRR, doing a bunch of different things, anywhere from the policy advocacy side of things, handling our internal finances and revolving loan fund, and administering grant programs that help small businesses across our community.
Okay. Very well said. I've known Bill for quite a while. You and I go back to the Tech Center and probably even before that. But you're kind of the new guy on the block here, right?
I am. I was, as you mentioned, I was working at Stafford Technical Center for about 20 years doing workforce development, adult education. And then took the opportunity about 3 months ago to do this new position that's down in the old Opera House, a place where you're familiar. Mm-hmm. Where it's been renovated into co-working space, and we're doing community programming, we're co-working, and we're going to be the launch pad, hopefully, for a bunch of new businesses using a curriculum that I'll talk about in a little later. Okay.
Yeah, and obviously I've been in and out of the building a number of times. We've had, different meetings there and events that have occurred. And it really is it's a brainchild of a whole bunch of people, I think. But there are little almost, I don't want to say cubicles because they're not like all one room with partitions. They're actual separate rooms that people can rent them and do business in them, right?
Right. Through some the generosity of both Killington and Casella, they have committed some substantial funds to the renovation of those rooms that are available primarily for leadership training within their own organizations. And they've been there a lot. I've noticed in the last 3 months that I've been in the building, and then they're available for community groups for pretty reasonable rental fees and training. And we just had I think it's District 5 meeting of the police force was there to talk about things in that particular district. Big crowd there. The chief of police was there. The mayor was there, looking to just bring people in and let people know. And people walking in the building, Brian, they see the sign outside. They see Hub Co-works, and it's like, what's that? And so anything that we can do to bring people in, and then that leads to people getting office space that we have. People that have they made that transition during COVID where they worked in a conventional space, work from home, and now they're looking to return, but perhaps not in a larger setting like that. So they're renting smaller spaces in our building.
Yeah, the individual offices, I don't know what the size of them are. I'm going to guess 12 by 12 or something similar to that. And then there's a couple larger rooms. What's the largest capacity if somebody wanted to rent a space and have a big meeting?
We've had, in the North Room, we've had 85 people. Kevin Chu from the Vermont Futures Project came down, and it was pretty sizable group of people. The Housing Trust came in and had a meeting there, and it was probably around the same 65 to 80 people, pretty comfortably. But it's a pretty versatile space, so we could make things work larger than that if the occasion arose. So
and people would get a hold of you to figure out how to get this all done.
Yeah, and we're just finishing up. We've just acquired a new reservation software program where you can actually go to, and we're relaunching a standalone website for the Hub Coworks, where you can actually go in there through the software. It's called RND, and where you can actually go in, see what's available, much like a hotel room or booking a plane ticket. You can go in there, see what's available, what rooms are available, put in the specs, even pay for it online. So it's pretty easy. But what our preference would be was that you come in, we'll treat you to a cup of coffee in the Railside cafe that we have there, small cafeteria within the building. We come on in and talk about what you need, and we'll make it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get back to a bunch of other topics with you, but let me switch over to Cooper for a second. This is Cooper Babbitt, the operations director of the whole thing, if you will, of CEDRR itself. You mentioned that part of the duties that you have, Cooper, is the revolving loan fund. And I think a lot of people listening to the show might be small business owners who might be interested in hearing more about that.
That's right. So we have a revolving loan fund. We have it through a program through the USDA known as Intermediary Relender Program, which means that we receive low-interest dollars from the USDA and are able to lend those back out to businesses in our community, focusing on things like job growth and retention. A lot of times folks will come to us looking to purchase a building for their business or acquire a business themselves. The way we work is we're not like a traditional lender. So we wouldn't come in as the primary lender on any particular project. What we would do is we'd work with a traditional bank or credit union that the client is working with, or with the Vermont Economic Development Authority, VEDA, which also provides business loans. And what we do is we cover the gap in financing. So, for example, if a business was looking to finance $100,000 and they could only get $80,000 from traditional lenders, what we could do is come in and help cover that extra 20% and kind of fill the gap that they need to do whatever project, buy whatever machinery, purchase a building that they're looking to purchase in furtherance of their business and to help create good paying jobs here in Rutland.
And I assume at fairly good and competitive rates?
That's right. Yeah, we base our rates off of the Wall Street Journal prime rate any given day. That sits around 8.5%. And as a little bonus, if you're a member of CEDRR, we actually provide a 1% discount. So right now, members of CEDRR, if they were to apply for our revolving loan fund, they'd be looking at about a 7.5% rate, which is pretty competitive in today's markets. We're dealing with high interest rates across the board, but for this type of loan, it's a pretty good rate for right now.
And as I understand, revolving loan funds, people that pay stuff back in, that money is then used to kind of go forward again and help somebody else out, right?
That's exactly right. As soon as we receive payments back, that goes right back into the fund, and we're able to relend it to other businesses in the community. Okay.
CEDRR also gives small business some technical assistance. Maybe you can kind of explain how that works.
That's right. So I've actually been in CEDRR for about 7 months now, and one of the first things that I was tasked with when I arrived was to run what we call the Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange. This is a statewide program that was run by both CEDRR as well as our peer groups, the other RDCs, regional development corporations across the state. And what it did is it provided up to $4,000 of grant funding to small businesses for any sort of technical project. And those projects ranged from getting that business's first professional website that has up-to-date photos and videos and allows customers to see what that business does. It allowed businesses to get technical assistance from lawyers to trademark their company name and logos. It allowed businesses that didn't have sophisticated software for bookkeeping to transition to a program like QuickBooks, so that they had a good way to track their finances on a day-to-day, week-to-week, and month-by-month basis. So this program I found to be extremely impactful. We're still working on it now. We've still got several businesses that are working through their projects. We had 18 total businesses in Rutland County and over 180 businesses across the state. And Brian, the beautiful thing about this program is that the money that we're paying for these projects isn't going to any sort of out-of-state company to do them. It's paying vendors who are also small businesses in Vermont. So all the money stayed in the hands of small businesses right here in Vermont.
We're talking to Cooper Babbitt and Bill Lucci from CEDRR. So let me go back to Bill for a second and tell us a little bit about the Co-Starter program. And then you also have a podcast series, right?
We do. I'll start with I'll do the latter, the podcast series. We created it. It's called View from the Top, and we initially wanted it to be a monthly podcast, but it's been so popular in terms of its of the number of drops that people have been listening that we've made it now every 2 weeks. The goal of the podcast, View from the Top, is to bring in leaders in manufacturing and the healthcare industry, government, education, and non-for-profits, bring in the heads of those organizations. I bring them in. We talk about their trajectory. How did you get to be the CEO or the CFO of these organizations? What are your proudest moments? What are the moments that you've had some challenges? So it's sort of like a leader, an opportunity for people to get to know a little bit better at the grassroots level, people that whose names they might be familiar with, but get to know them a little bit more personally. Mike Pichek was our first guest, state treasurer of Vermont, great guy. It was an awesome podcast. We've had David Berg, the new president of Vermont State University, come in and talk about where the Vermont State University is going. Dan Smith, from the CFO from the Vermont Community Foundation, Kevin Chu from the Vermont Futures Project, Matt Dunn from Corey, the Center on Rural Innovation, has come in. That's going to drop in a couple of weeks. Scott Giles will be coming in 2 weeks to talk about VSAC. So it's a nice way to put a very kind of down-to-earth face on these people that you might be familiar with, but just to get to know them a little bit better and sort of personalize them a little bit.
Sounds excellent to me, yeah.
It's great.
How about the Co-Starter program? So
the Co-Starter program is it's a national curriculum for people who are looking to start businesses. It's different from the other part of from the Startup Rutland program that's also at the Hub Co-Works. The Co-Starter program is a 10-week program that takes people who have a business idea and they're not quite sure whether it's going to make it or not, or if it's a valid program or an opportunity for them to launch. So they come in, they start off with their idea, and we take them through the steps of evaluating the likelihood that business will be successful, and we deal with all of the curricular areas that you might get in a college level program, but this is a little bit more personal, a little bit more evaluative, where we bring people in who are experts in those 10 areas, say in marketing, developing a website, how do you establish an LLC, whether or not it's financially viable for you, where you're going to get your money, startup money to be able to start your business. And then by the end, they're going to determine whether or not this is something they want to go forward with. And then on the good side of this is if you're making a prototype of something, an actual product that we'll be able to connect you with the Mint, which is also an affiliate of CEDRR that we've helped out, and we bring them down to the Mint where they have access to the tools to actually develop a workable prototype of the product that they've got in their mind. So it's going to be a very cost-effective program. We're going to start recruiting the first cohort in the next couple of months with hopefully a late summer or early fall launch for this group of 10 people.
Very interesting. I have so much respect for what CEDRR does, and it seems as though there's a confluence of really good, positive things going on in Rutland County, and I don't think that was true maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I think we sort of, hit a lull or something, not anybody's fault. We just were there. But you're seeing new leadership at the partnership. You're seeing CEDRR really stepping in and filling some important gaps for especially business opportunities for people. You've got the whole situation up on the mountain at Killington, which is going to be absolutely incredible when that village center begins to show its face. And, it's interesting when you sit and think about it. If someone wanted to start a trucking company, for instance, if everything goes according to plan up there, you are guaranteed a 25-year business just moving stuff back and forth from Killington to other places. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And by the way, speaking of good things, the legislature did this year manage to get this bill through, which will allow a lot of the investment money to be used for that expansion up there. And I don't think the governor has signed it yet. Again, I must caution people that we're recording this show on the 21st of April for air on the 28th. So in the intervening week, the governor may well have signed the bill and it will become law, but it's passed both chambers and I believe it's on his desk. He usually takes 3 or 4 days to look at the bill and make sure there isn't anything unintended there before he puts his name to it. But so there's so much good stuff going on, I guess is where I was going with this. And there is an intersection with Act 250, and that's our land use law that was 1971, I believe. It's about, maybe it was 74, 50 years old. And we have a couple of different versions of it. Again, realizing the risk of talking about it in the intervening week, lots of stuff could have happened. But for the moment, when we're recording this, the House bill, and I'm not really good remembering all the numbers of the bills. I know what they deal with. I think it's 686.
687.
687. All right, well, that isn't too bad. I know the Senate number was 311. So there are different provisions in each of those bills, some of which, according to people that I talk to, are really good for, the local downtown village centers like Rutland City it would be very good for people in Rutland City, but not so good for people in rural areas because in some ways it actually makes it more difficult to go through the development process. So it came out of Senate Natural, and I understand now it's a 200-page bill, and it includes provisions of both, and I have no idea how, when it gets to the floor, whether there'll be floor amendments or it'll get sent back to committee to get changed or anything else. The governor's indicated, at least initially, that it would be problematic for him to sign it, so we run the risk of a potential gubernatorial veto as well. But I'll go back to Cooper because I think you at least have been paying a little bit of attention to this. To be honest with you, I haven't. I'm a Republican, and we do not have anyone that sits in the Senate Natural Resources Committee, so we don't have that sort of ability to day by day figure out what's been going on. There's 7 of us. And if one was assigned to each one, we would be able to get one on every committee. But for whatever reason, 2 of the senators, both Rutland County senators, were both put on education and health and welfare. So we don't have anybody on Senate Natural. So I don't know where the bill is right now in terms of each of those provisions probably coming out favorably. But there's a tiered situation now, as I understand. I think there's 3 tiers, and I'll let you go through that, Coop, because I'm not really up to speed on it.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a few different bills, and this is something I've been following all session long. At the end of the day, while maybe well-intentioned when it was put in place years ago, Act 250 is contributing right now to the housing crisis that we're experiencing. And that's not just a matter of getting people out of homelessness. It's a matter of having houses for people looking to move here to work. One of the biggest things we hear from regional employers, especially the larger employers, is that they have a very difficult time recruiting people from out of state to move to the Rutland area or anywhere in Vermont, frankly, because they're unable to find a home. And if we want to continue to grow economically and support our businesses, we need to build more housing across the income spectrum. And unfortunately, what's going on in terms of Act 250 is it's making it very difficult to do so across the state. And so there's been a number of bills this session that all follow a similar formula. It's going to exempt housing development from Act 250 in certain areas, and in a lot of cases make it a lot more difficult to build in other areas. And so the current bill that seems like the mover in the Senate right now is H687. It originated in the House in their Energy and Environment Committee. And what it does is it creates a tiered system. So on the most exempt side of things is Tier 1A and Tier 1B. And those are towns with extensive bylaws, capacity for local zoning administration, designated downtowns, places where they're already built up. A lot of times there's upper floors that are ready to be renovated, and really just areas that are already developed. That's on the one side. On the other side is Tier 3. And Tier 3 is what we'd call the most protected resources. It's places above 2,000 feet in elevation. It's forest blocks. It's critical habitats for our animals here. And then everything else is stuck in that middle Tier 2. And that's what's concerning. And the problem is that the bill, while being over 200 pages long, doesn't actually delineate these areas. What it does is it sets up rules, or it creates a body to create these rules, to then go out and map these areas. And so as it stands right now, yes, it will be great for towns like Rutland City, for example. But it also creates a possibility that a lot of small towns who want to develop housing are going to be left out. And so that's what the legislatures are working through right now. In addition to how those tiers shake out, we're also looking at a couple years where nothing's going to change. It's going to take multiple years for them to do these maps, to create the new Environmental Review Board, to allow communities to apply to these different tiers, and then actually create the rules. And so in the interim, we're facing a housing crisis right now. What we need are interim exemptions to allow developers to build housing right now. And that's what these bills are missing at the moment. And I hope that those ideas make their way up to the Senate and make their way into the bill before it passes out of the Senate. It passed with only 89 votes in the House. It's ripe for a veto if that's what the governor thinks is right. And so if the legislature wants this to become law, I think they've got a lot of work to do right now in terms of making sure that it doesn't stifle housing development in the next few years. Yeah,
to your point, Coop, we don't do things that are very quick or happen very quickly in the legislature. And there's probably some very good reasons for that. You don't want to just jam something through that doesn't make any sense. It does take some careful thought, for the most part, to get something done. But it also creates delays, which exacerbate the existing conditions. And I'll mention West Rutland had, I think, 3 projects. Mary Cohn was on from the Housing Trust with us a while back. There were 2 of them that were inside the district, so they were fine, and they had a speedy process to go through in terms of 250. But there was one that lay just outside the district. They did a workaround. I don't know exactly how they did it, but they did manage to get that into play. And then we've had a local developer right on Route 7 North, right around the former Seward restaurant, that again, I don't know how far outside the district this person is, but he's ready to go. He's got all the tools and everything's ready, but he's, again, being hampered by, as you point out, I think, the inability to get things done predictably and cost efficiently as well. So I do think there's more work to be done for sure.
Yeah, and one other thing on housing development in particular is even if whether a project falls under Act 250 now is one thing, but even if a project gets through the Act 250 process, there's this thing called the 10-5-5 rule. And that creates a lot of issues for developers. What it means is that you can build only 10 units in 5-mile radius in 5-year period. So if we have developers who want to build, 2 15-unit projects, they're going to have to do so more than 5 miles away from each other. And as I understand Act 250, one of the things it tried to combat was suburban sprawl. And in my view, this is something that creates suburban sprawl. It creates the necessity for developers to move outside this dense radius of development and build elsewhere. And I think that's a problem not only for creating tight, dense, vibrant communities, but also hinders housing development greatly. And to your point earlier about making sure it's a deliberative and thoughtful process, in the Senate right now, there was kind of 2 primary bills. There was House 687, which I mentioned, and then there was also Senate 311. That bill was very similar to the governor's proposal in the early weeks of the legislature, and it was taken up by the Senate Economic Development Committee. And I will say, Senator Ram Hinsdale, who chairs that committee, took an extremely deliberative and thoughtful process. Took many weeks of testimony to develop the rules and exemptions that we had hoped would make it into that House bill. Unfortunately, it seems that the Senate Natural Resources Committee didn't want to go along with that plan. And so my hope is that as that bill makes its way around the other committees in the coming week, maybe someone raises their hand and says, we really got to do this. Make sure we have something in the interim few years here as we develop these tiers.
Yeah, the Senate Bill 311, as I recall, had tripartisan support and had the governor well behind it. I think, in fact, there was a press conference with all 3 parties being represented and the governor, and it was kind of a kumbaya, let's get going and get this done. And again, it's hit a roadblock. And as you say, Cooper, I hope that we can find a way to get the job done, at least on that front. We're talking to Cooper Babbitt and Bill Lucci from CEDRR. We need to take a break, and we will be coming right back on Catamount Community Connection. We're back on Catamount Community Connection, and this week we're talking to Bill Lucci, the program director of the Hub Coworks, and Cooper Babbitt, the operations director of CEDRR itself. And we talked a little bit about some of the things that have come up and will be coming up, the intersection of the legislature's Act 250 reform, hopefully. We talked about the revolving loan fund and the technical assistance fund that is available through CEDRR. And Bill talked a little bit about the podcast. And if you are thinking about beginning a business, you can get all sorts of help with a co-starter program. Bill, if you could go into this Rutland collaboration with Generator. I don't know what that is, but I think you do.
I do. It's a national organization that actually probably international organization that gets businesses that are ready for the next phase. You've got something that you're looking to be able to roll out that is as far as a business goes. Generator helps you determine. I guess I think Mose Casaro, who's the venture capital guy, would probably be mad if I said it's sort of like Shark Tank, but it's okay. It's kind of like Shark Tank, all right. Where you put your application in. For your business to get it to the next level. You need some venture capital. The applications come in, and Mose and a group of people who are a lot smarter in that particular area than I am will determine whether or not your business is going to be able to get to that next level within the context of all of the applications that are there. And then you can apply for if you're determined to be one of those businesses, then there's a venture capital fund that we have within the Hub Coworks or Startup Rutland that will help you get some additional capital to bring your business to the next level. And as I said, it's an international organization that we're partnering with to make that happen. And Mose Casaro is the venture capital specialist who breathes life into that opportunity here in the Rutland region.
One of the things you mentioned earlier, and it never dawned on me that CEDRR was involved with this, but if someone had an idea for a particular business and they get help from the Co-Starter program, and it becomes fairly evident somewhere along the process that this just isn't going to work very well, and you may need to do some tweaking in order to get it to a point where you can actually launch. I can't imagine that that's not really valuable to people. So instead of just bullying your way through, and I've seen this happen more often than not, necessarily, not just in downtown Rutland, but someone will open up a business to do, a restaurant. And they didn't do enough sort of pre-work to figure out that what they wanted to offer for the price they wanted to offer, it just wasn't going to work. And so it would have saved them a lot of money and a lot of trouble if CEDRR had been around back in the day.
Right, and with the Co-Starter program, that's actually one of the modules that's embedded within the program, is to determine. So what do I need to start the business? What should I charge for my product? Am I charging enough? And how do I turn a profit? What does that mean in terms of making it a viable, sustainable business? And it's one of the things. I'm going to be the facilitator of the program. I had to go through a 15-hour training to bring that to light. And in my previous life, I essentially started businesses myself in the through the workforce development program. So we started a CDL school. We started an allied health school to train people, and we have to determine, what do we charge? What is it going to cost to get the capital equipment to start the program? So I have a background in that from my previous life. But one of the things in the training program that actually came up was sometimes the idea that you have, like you've said, with a startup restaurant. It would be nice to have known in the beginning that this is not a particularly good idea before you put your money in and you've got people that invest. That it's okay to come out of that 10-week program and know this isn't really a good idea for a business, and try something else, or as you said, to tweak it a little bit to make it so that it's a good idea and a likelihood that the business will be sustainable. And that was one of the things that was kind of interesting that they focused on. It's like okay to walk out of that 10 weeks and not start your business.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't look at that as one of the goals of the Co-Starter program, but Co-Starter is like right out there with that, making that known and possible.
Yeah. And I just picked restaurant as an example. If there are already 5 restaurants in Rutland that cater to just Italian cuisine, to open a 6th one doesn't seem to make a lot of sense unless it's going to be like it's going to blow everything else away. Pick another aspect of that restaurant business, that kind of thing. The thing I will say, there's always, it seems, room for bars. We do a really good job with bars. They come and go, but there's always plenty of bars that are opening up. So
and tattoo places.
Yes, lately.
Yeah.
And again, 25, 30 years ago, that would not have been a good thing for people to decide to do.
Right, it's pretty funny that you brought those two things up. So the Co-Starter program is something that we would evaluate those two as examples, those two things. And the Generator program, it's not a restaurant, it's not a bar, it's not a coffee shop. Their tech startups is primarily what Mose is featuring and putting his emphasis on, are tech startups. So that's where the line is drawn and the separation is. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are in a place where physically, when I first came to town in 1972, the Economy department store was still open and occupied the space that the CoWorks is in now. In fact, probably a little bit even more than that. It was a huge department store. And I remember it had at least 4 floors, and there were elevators to go up and down. And it was only open for about 2 or 3 years after I came, and then it closed. And it became a bunch of other things, including Catamount Radio at one point. We had part of the building, and it was easily the best place I've ever worked in terms of physical location, because it was you were able to really spread out. We had 5 different studios there. Each of them had live programming. There were sales offices and engineering. It was the best place in the world. Where we are now on Door Drive is also great, and the owner remodeled and spent a lot of his own money to do that. But back in the day, that was the place to be, the economy. And I don't know whether you were there yet.
No,
Coop's way too young, I'm sure, to remember.
he wasn't.
I was born a couple years later, but
Okay.
Yeah,
I know.
let's get him.
74 or 5, I think, is when it finally bit the dust, so to speak. Let's go back to Cooper as we move along here. The Industrial Park Phase 2 development, what's up with that?
Yeah, so as people may be familiar, there's the Airport Business Park on Route 7B just outside the airport limits. This is something that was developed many, many years ago by CEDRR's predecessor organization, Reddick, and it's at full capacity, essentially. There's a number of businesses there. Tuttle Publishing is there. Vermont Country Store is there. Atomic Pro Audio, and a number of other businesses. And so what we've realized is that in Rutland County, like a lot of places in Vermont, we lack good industrial or commercial space. And so what we've done is we went out to federal funding sources such as the Northern Borders Regional Commission and said, hey, we'd like to take utilities that already exist on the east side of Route 7B, and we'd like to bring them over to the west side of Route 7B. And what that will do is allow those existing plots to be developable. So there's a number of plots on that side that we think are ripe for commercial and industrial space. And so what CEDRR's doing is we're working with the Airport Business Park Association and some local engineers using those federal dollars to take that the wastewater and water utilities, bring them across the road, and set the stage for future development of those plots. What we'd like to see over there, and what we think is likely, is larger industrial space, 30-foot ceilings, 3-phase power, loading docks. The way a lot of these buildings are built now, you can kind of maneuver the internal walls so that, for example, we could have 3 tenants with 10,000 square feet, let a business grow inside that building. Maybe they take another section of that as they go, and really just create a space that allows for small manufacturers to have a place to come. One of the things that we do as part of CEDRR's kind of day-to-day business is help with site location for businesses that are here in Vermont, but also businesses that are looking to move here. In the last few months, I was speaking with a company based out of Montreal with some really innovative, interesting manufacturing products that would be a perfect fit for Vermont. And they really wanted to be here in Vermont for a number of reasons. And the difficulty that they found was finding suitable space. So I took them to spots in this area, in Rutland County. They looked all over the state, but they couldn't find something that worked for them. And so it looked like they're going to go to New York. And, if we had suitable space ready to go, that's a great business. It would have created a number of high-paying jobs with benefits. It also would have been a great kind of anchor business to get Vermont and Rutland's brand out there. Unfortunately, we don't have the space. So what CEDRR's doing right now is we're working to build more. And if not us build more, we're going to create some infrastructure that allows other folks to buy the plots and make it make sense for them to build there. And so, as I said, we got some federal money to do one step of it. We've applied to the state for the Rural Industry and Development Program that was recently rolled out through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So hoping that money comes through in the next few weeks here. And really just hoping to keep plugging forward and create more opportunity for private money to come and develop and create opportunities for businesses.
It seems like it's a good location, too. I don't know how much they might be dependent on the airport, but it's right there. So if a cargo plane came in with parts or needed something to be done, you're right there. I mean, years ago, in downtown Rutland, we had the rail. We still have it, but it at one time was, I think, probably more important to businesses than it is today. But the airport seems to be a really good connection for people that are coming into the region. I know our recent experience with the eclipse, I think Rutland had all of a sudden this flurry of activity of those that were a little more fortunate than myself and able to, pay for a plane to come in just so they could be in this so-called totality. So, there's always something going on at the airport, it seems.
Yeah, that's right. It's a perfect location, especially as our economy is less local, more regionalized or international. Having access to an airport within a stone's throw is a great resource for businesses. And in addition, we have a great airport that's underutilized. As you mentioned, we had plenty of capacity for folks with their private jets to come in for totality. Let's start to build up and consider other ways that the airport can be used to support our region, support local businesses, and really take advantage of that resource that we have here.
Yeah, I don't know what land is left available. I believe it was the Markowski Group that extended the runway or runways to allow larger aircraft to both take off and land there. And that was, 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And it's made a big difference. Cape Air, which is our local connection to Logan Airport, seems to be doing well. They have 3 flights in and 3 flights out every day. And people connect, and you get to Logan, you can go anywhere in the world. We had a situation where there's another one up in Burlington, I think, that has a direct connection as well. But Rutland is beginning, as I mentioned earlier, this, and it's a whole bunch of little, well, maybe not so little, but a bunch of different things that are happening in the region that all point toward some really good economic growth, I think, that we'll be seeing over the next 6-8 years.
I think that's right. As I mentioned, I grew up here my entire life. Went away for a few years, and when I moved back, the thing that struck me was how the community had seemed to decide it's Rutland's time right now. And I think that's a really exciting position we're at. Not only the work that CEDRR's doing, but tons of different community organizations and community leaders seem like everyone is looking in the same direction and saying this is the time for Rutland, and let's all grab hands and jump together. And I think that's a really exciting moment to be in, and I look forward to the years to come.
Yeah, me too, for sure. One of the other things that CEDRR does, we haven't mentioned yet, we've kind of focused on the economic side of things, but we have events that from time to time draw all kinds of people in. I know, Bill, you wanted to talk about the art show that's coming up, right?
Right. This is a plug for Rutland High School. Maddie Pritchard, who teaches art at Rutland High School, has her advanced placement AP students coming down. They wanted to really highlight the work that the kids did this year. And they wanted a really good event space, so they're coming down to do their show the end of May. And then we're going to, and it's going to be closed to just their family and friends for that opening to really make it nice for the kids to highlight their work. And then for 2 weeks after that, they'll be keeping their artwork in the Hub Co-works space, in the exhibition space, for people to come in off the street and to see their work over a 2-week period. And all we're really kind of asking for is somebody for donations, and the money would go back to Rutland High School, to the art program, and to the kids that are coming up next. And we're really happy that we're going to be able to provide that space for them. And we'd really like that event and meeting space. I mean, it's co-working space. We have day passes where we had some people come in who were skiing up at Killington who wanted to get away from their husband and or wife or kids while they were up there skiing for the week, and they wanted a nice quiet place with great Wi-Fi and accommodations where they could come down, get away from their vacation and do some work. And they came down and they used the day pass and came down and used our space. So we want it to be Vermont's premier event and meeting space. So we're putting it out there. Going back to what Coop was talking about a moment ago, when organizations like the Housing Trust or the police want to come in and have a community meeting, we want that to be at our space, so that people know if they want to do something, they want it done right, and nice accommodations, then the Hub Co-works is a place to make that happen. You
have, in my view, probably the best executive director that there is. Lyle Jepson and Crispin White, who does a great job with the events. Yeah. And we talked when they were on this program before about some of the things that have already happened in some cases and some that'll be coming up. The Real Rutland Feud, which I think was in March, if I'm remembering correctly.
It was in February, I believe.
February? Okay. Very well attended, lots of fun. The Whoopie Pie Festival, which is a summer event, will be coming up again. It seems like every year we've taken the next step up in terms of setting records for the largest whoopie pie in the world or something like that. I'm not really up to speed with that, but it was amazing.
I think this year we're looking at over 900-pound whoopie pies is what the rumor is going around town. So if you want to see a 900-pound whoopie pie, September 14th, come on down to downtown Rutland and be amazed.
We have also coming up, I'm just looking at the calendar, the Vermont Farmers Market. Of course, that's every Saturday in downtown Rutland. Some of the other things that you might be able to talk about, the Loyalty Day Parade, which is in early May. I think it's on the 5th. There's always things to do at the Mint, too. The annual meeting was there, I think, was it this past year?
It was.
And very well attended. And that has grown from like this little teeny 20 by 40 foot space into this giant thing.
Right. iBots, Dan Roswell, who works for Rutland Public Schools and is also the sort of the driving force for the iBots 2370 program, where kids are coming in and creating robots. They're actually in Houston right now, and that's where Lyle is. His kids are both in that iBots program. They've got is it the largest playing field in Vermont at the Mint?
They do, yes. The Rutland Area Robotics has the largest playing field in Vermont, I believe. It's a regulation-sized playing field. And they are, as Bill mentioned, down at the World Championships in Houston right now, competing against, what I heard was there's more countries represented at this event than there are in the Winter Olympics. So it's a major international event. It just goes to show what is possible and available to the youth in Rutland and creating a next generation of innovators.
It's a great between Cedar and Rutland High School and the iBots, the 2370 program. I mean, the synergy created by all of us working together, and really the focal point is Cedar. I mean, that's they're ground zero for everything that's happened in a variety of ways, as you noted, Brian, and with Lyle leading the charge.
For sure. We're talking to Bill Lucci and Cooper Babbitt from Cedar. We need to take one more commercial break, and we'll be coming right back here on Catamount, the Catamount Community Connection. We're back on Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, the host. I should mention the show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. That's about the only thing that Cedar can't take credit for, I think, today. And we're looking forward to the 178th Fair, August 13th through 17th, 2024. My thanks to Robert Congdon for the sponsorship. As we get closer to that date, we will let you know who's been what country actor has been hired to come in and entertain in August. But we really appreciate the Rutland County Agricultural Society and the Vermont State Fair being part of this. And we are talking to Bill Lucci, the program director of the Hub Co-works, and Cooper Babbitt, the operations director of Cedar. And we've got about 11 minutes left in the program today. So I just wanted to leave a little bit of time to cover anything that we didn't get to earlier. And I'll just throw it open to either of you to bring us up to date on some other things that are happening.
Okay, so some of the things that we're looking to do is to help area businesses, both startups and existing businesses. And in the last couple of months, we were fortunate to get the assistance from Vermont Law School, where we did 2 workshops, 2-hour workshops for businesses starting up and like, well, how do I trademark? I've got a name and I've got a logo, I've got a tagline. How do I get that registered and make that happen? And Vermont Law School was nice enough to commit 2 attorneys to us. that did the first workshop. It was called Business Essentials, where people could come to the workshop, and we had a nice showing for that, and get all of those questions answered about starting your business from a legal perspective. Then we followed that up a couple of weeks later with business transfers. If you're going to sell your business, if you have a business partner and you're looking to transition out and turn the business over to them, how do we do that? How do we do a merger and buy existing business from somebody? They did that workshop as well for 2 hours, and we had businesses show up who are interested in doing any of those things for existing businesses. And last week, Ann Lezak, who's top of the line proposal and business writing professional in the state of Vermont, she did a workshop live at the Hub for people who are looking to access grant and foundation funding. Had a lot of not-for-profits attend that workshop that Ann did. And an interesting piece that she incorporated was how to use AI into writing your proposal and using that technology in terms of writing a killer proposal so that you can get up your game a little bit to be able to access grant funding and foundation funding. We had a nice group of local Rutland not-for-profits attend that workshop also at the Hub. So we're looking to do more of that type of thing moving forward, again with the goal of letting people in the Rutland area know that this is the place where the Hub truly is the Hub. This is where it all happens.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. AI is even reached the legislature at one point. There were a couple of bills that were introduced last year that just, I want to phrase this carefully, it scares me a little bit to think that I'm going to actually turn something over to a machine to decide on my behalf whether this is going to... I mean, you look at the cars that are now able to drive themselves. You only hear about the ones where there was an issue, but that does happen where it didn't stop when it was supposed to or whatever. But we did pass at least a bill or two that asked for some study and some framework in which all of that should be operating. So I guess it is the next thing, right?
It is. And I guess from being an old academic, both figuratively and literally, the being that person, we were talking about, as I teach a couple of classes for Vermont State University and old VTC, and we're kicking around like, we all used to be worried about plagiarism. Right, somebody buying a paper or having somebody else write a paper for somebody, yep. And now we're talking about like, what are we going to do when somebody just goes through AI, ChatGPT, and just says, I need a paper on, starting a brewery. Since going back to talking yep. about starting a restaurant and a brewery, somebody, you get a paper, you're a teacher, and you get a paper, and it's like, this doesn't seem like Ted's writing style. What do you do with that when you stop using it as a tool and you use it more for something else? But it certainly does have its applicability and made it clear that it's just a starting place rather than something that can actually write the entire thing for you. We'll figure that all out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cooper, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to just follow up on some things Bill said about the Hub GoWorks. In my time since joining CEDRR, I found what's going on upstairs to be one of the most exciting things happening in Rutland these days. And while there's tons looking forward of things that will come, the Co-Starter program, the Generator Accelerator, the work is already being done at the Hub. There's already been a couple startup businesses who've really started to grow, already working out of there. You've got Tacitly, which is a local business that does virtual reality training for nurses and healthcare workers. You've got Vermont Tech Services Group, which recently got a great contract to help the state with ADA voting requirements. So there's already great work being done in the Hub, and it's just a sign of so much more to come. And that just goes to show, and what I'll plug is that if you're looking to start a business, if you own a business, if you are considering it, come in, 67th Merchants Row. You can either catch us at CEDRR downstairs or go on up to the Hub and see what's going on there. there's going to be someone in our office who's ready to talk to you and see how we can help. And then one last thing is that every month on the second Tuesday, we have a mixer. That'll be this month or in May 14th at UBS, also at 67 Merchants Row. Those are open community events. You don't have to be a CEDRR member to go. And it's just a great opportunity to meet with folks in the community, talk with other business leaders, and just have a nice time. So I'd plug anytime, second Tuesday of any month. We're already booked out into 2026, I believe, with businesses who want to host. So if you're free on a Tuesday night, come on down, check our calendar online at rutlandvermont.com, and come see us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much to both of you for being on the program today. I'd love to have you back in a period of time, 5, 6, 7 weeks. I know we'll have Lyle and Crispin back for sure as we get near the beginning of spring and into summer. And thank you for all you do for the community. It's a great organization. Again, CEDRR is the Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region. As Cooper mentioned, 67 Merchants Row, or you can go online and find out more about that. And we invite you to join us next week here for another edition of Catamount Community Connection.